Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nick Kroll Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. This episode, we're going to do part two of our three, maybe four-part financial freedom series. I have Josh here with me again today. What's going on?
Another day.
Another day. So in this episode, what you can kind of expect is how to pay off debt, your debt snowball, why you should pay off your debt, the way that we're going to explain it, credit card points, because we know that's a big thing with people. The importance of discipline in this area, and wherever else the conversation may take us.
A lot of places, probably.
Yeah, I feel like this could be a long one, so buckle up. First question is going to you. Why we came from a different spot here. I never really had debt. We talked a little bit about our debts before. What made you want to change the debts? I mean, you had a fair amount of debt for someone that was our age. What made you decide I'm done with this shit?
Well, like any young person going into life, especially someone coming out of college, is you pretty much have 6 months to figure your shit out. Because in 6 months, you're going to start paying on that student loan debt. For me, I think I had a total, just myself, of nearly $80,000 in student loan debt. Just myself. And then there's Courtney has some as well. The minimum payment on that for 25 years was, I think, about $600. So
What, you got to be an asshole.
huge asshole. I mean, biggest asshole on campus. But unfortunately, I am by far not the biggest asshole, and that's sad. But what you do is, okay, so you get out of school and, you're happy to make a living. You start making money, and then all of a sudden,
Adult money.
yeah, I mean,
You're not making $15 an hour at flipping burgers anymore.
especially, I landed a pretty good, or what most people would consider a pretty good career, and I was making, much more than, minimum wage or I wouldn't say I was making a low income, but I wasn't making a lot of money either. What was sad was even with that income, there was nothing left. After I got my car, got a lease, all that stupid shit, there wasn't much money left. I mean, it was just, there was no money at the end of the month, so that was my issue. And then I had some troubles with my career. I ended up leaving for...
I don't want to cut you off here, but I want to go a little bit further into that because I feel like what you did was so normal, and I feel like so many people do that, and I think it's important for them to relate. It's pretty relatable what you did. You got out, you got a car, you were enjoying life. I mean, you were happy, like you had your car, you had a snowmobile, side by side, and a jet ski.
Yeah.
New shit too. It wasn't like it was like used.
Jet ski was badass though.
Yeah.
There's no question that jet ski was badass.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do miss it like crazy, but I want one again. But it was badass. But yeah, it was. I did everything, that normal people do.
Right.
There's the problem.
Yeah.
I did what everyone else is doing.
And it was fun. It was a good time, but it wasn't sustainable.
While it lasted.
Yeah.
And then you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's a phrase I think anyone who's listening to Dave Ramsey has heard a million times, being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And especially, I was at work at this point now because I had bills to pay. I had debt to pay. And at the time I honored my credit score, pretty proud of it. Never in my life have I ever missed a payment or anything, but that's not a success point for my life. At that point it was. Now, I mean, if my credit score is 0 forever, fantastic, right on. And people go, what? Like, what do you mean? How do you do that?
Never in my life was I able to tell anybody what my credit score was. I just didn't know. It wasn't something I gave a shit about. It wasn't terrible. Like, I would never, ever tell someone, oh, don't pay off your debts. I would never tell someone get a bad credit score. But I just wasn't focused on it. And, I mean, we got a pretty decent, I think 2.75 is our interest rate on our house.
Pretty damn good credit score.
Yeah.
You probably had one, or, from paying off the debt that you did have.
Yeah, I mean, but I never knew. I think I saw it once on the application for the mortgage. It was like 720 maybe, something like that.
Right.
I didn't even know, like, on a scale is that good or like I don't know. I don't pay attention to that stuff because it doesn't matter. Why would you pay 25% more for something if you should just buy it? I remember being 17 and my mom.
I remember it too. I remember being younger than that, and you were saying that.
Like, why? I'll never forget that conversation of my mother explaining to me to build my credit. I was like, this makes 0 sense, lady. Like, you're telling me I got to go give the bank money and the bank's going to buy this for me, and then I'm going to pay the bank back 25% more than if I paid for that, but I should just pay for this because I have the cash? Well,
A credit
I couldn't
score
understand it.
is an I love debt score. The only way to have a good credit score is to buy, for the most part, consumer items that you couldn't afford with cash at the time. The only debt that anyone is okay with, me and you included, is a mortgage.
Yeah.
As long as you do it right. That's coming up at another point on how to do it right. But I think, bringing it back, down, talking about debt, talking about, credit score, things like that. And for me, everything was apparently going well. I looked well. I was wearing fancy suits. I worked in the city. I had all these fancy licenses. I was driving this new car. I had all this stuff. But you know what I do now when I see a brand new car?
You go, wow, that guy's probably poor.
That's a nice payment. That's
Yeah.
a real nice payment. Bank of America has himself a nasty power stroke.
Yeah.
And it's like you see it all the time. I mean, you drive by these construction jobs, you drive by, a place of work, especially blue collar, and you see like $80,000 pickups there. And listen, I would like to believe that they're all owned in cash. They're not.
Statistically, it's impossible. Statistically, 80% of those people live paycheck to paycheck.
Buried. And people live paycheck to paycheck regardless of what income level. Going back, it's not an income problem.
Absolutely not.
You see it all the time. I mean, you see people driving Mercedes and BMWs, and yeah, they have good jobs, but like they just, my car payment is $386. Theirs is $1,300 a month. My mortgage would be, $1,300 to $1,800. Theirs is $4,000 a month.
I have friends that do this. I have friends that make the same amount because we're at the same job doing the same thing, that make the same amount of money, and they have $60,000 trucks. And in my head, I'm like I don't like say it to people. You know what I mean? Like it's rude to be like, "Oh, your new truck is a fucking horrible idea. You're a moron." Like I don't say that to these people, but like
it's hard not to.
I look at that and I'm just like, why? Like why did you do this to yourself? Because you're hurting yourself, right? Like, oh, it's fun. I love it. It's nice. Like, yeah, it's nice until it gets your first scratch. Then you're pissed.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, and you got to learn to not worship, those luxury goods. You know me better than anybody. You know I like luxury goods. You know I have a plan for them. All the while, but my cell phone is worth 4 times more than my car. That's a real thing.
Yeah, and there's a difference between owning a car and paying for a car, right? That car ain't yours till you have a title in your hands.
Correct.
Like you already said, Bank of America got a new car. I want to really drive that point home. When you drive off the lot, if you owe even a penny on that car, which usually you owe like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on that car, it ain't even yours. Like, how does that feel to you? Like knowing that your car isn't even yours. Right? Everybody can't wait to put their Instagram picture up. Oh, I bought a car today. You really didn't. Like you, go ahead.
And you know what's sad about that? It's normal in this culture to congratulate people for going into debt. But I guarantee you, if I post on my page one day, hey, look at my new Corvette and here's the title, that would be seen as shitty.
People would hate you.
They would hate me. But they would hate me. Why? People like to talk about shit they're good at. People hate to talk about shit they're uncomfortable with. That's why diet, exercise, finances are all sensitive topics. Why? Because we all spend so much of our life, working for money. We all spend so much of our life, like we see these people who are fit, who are well, I want to be like them, but they don't have what it takes to do that. What I hate about, I don't know if it's just this country, I hope it's not, but it probably is, talking about money is not kosher. Talking about your individual finances is not okay. And the only reason it's not okay is because if you're doing better than somebody else, it's you see it all the time. People are only happy for other people when they're doing better than them.
Right. Nobody doing worse than you is happy for you.
No, and it's just so sad because I think if we could open a dialogue and we could talk about our finances a little closer, and get some feedback, I think we'd be in a lot better spot. I mean, there are dozens of people whose lives I believe that I have changed just in the past 2 years by talking about these things and showing them what I did. Because listen, I did every stupid thing you didn't do. So my story is a little bit more relatable because I financed a snowmobile. I mean, there was a point, it was $6,000 and I couldn't pay cash for it at that point, right? What am I doing buying a snowmobile?
Yeah.
I mean,
you use it 3 months out of the year.
Jackass. I mean, super jackass. When I bought the Ranger, I put $4,000 down on it, so I was a little smarter. Like that was kind of like my process. Like I was really stupid, and then I was becoming less and less stupid. So I was like, putting that $4,000 down only lowered the payment by $60 a month, but.
Oh, let me relate that to buying a house real quick because when we bought our house, people were telling us, no, you shouldn't put 20% down. Why would you do that? Have your cash. Your payment's only going to go down X amount of dollars. Yeah, that's the problem. You're thinking about the fucking payment. That's
What's
the
the
fucking
cost?
problem. Yeah, like, don't
Yeah.
you get this? Like, that's the problem. The payment is the problem. I don't know, like, it's just wild to me. Like, we've already said it. I've never understood this, like, thinking. And like, hearing it from someone who, like, went through it is definitely helpful because it makes me realize, like, I don't know. I don't think I'm special for thinking that way. I just think it was kind of common sense. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's...
the process for me and the process for most people, I mean, this isn't a real statistic, but I would venture to guess 99% of people aren't like you. I would say 95 at least percent of people venture into debt at some point in their lives. You never have. You never have experienced debt.
Just the mortgage.
Just the mortgage. But you've never experienced consumer debt. That's where people have a problem. Credit cards, cars. I mean, the mortgages are a problem too. There's no question. I think people buy too big of a house. I think that's true. But that's a totally different topic. The money is wasted on dumb shit. Really.
Nickel and diming.
And shit that you can't show for it.
Rims for your fucking new truck that you can't afford.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen people, because I'm in the car business, that finance a truck and then finance the wheels for it. I mean, it's like, I can't trade my truck. Can I have the wheels off because I have a payment on my rims? You know what I mean? And it's, you gotta be a super asshole. And, I think the key for me was becoming less stupid as I went along. And then at one point, I'm like, and I'm not going to get into it too deep, but I had a pretty rough patch career-wise. I was living in the city. I hated it. I had to change my career, and I got to the lowest point, in my life where money dried up. I still had all these payments. I was just making enough to make the payments, and okay, how did I get out of that? I think that's what this whole episode is going to be like. How do you get out of debt? And we're going to talk about math. We're going to talk about behavior. We're going to talk about sacrifices. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. Step number 1, get the fuck out. If you have...
Put your foot down.
Just enough is enough. Be real with yourself and be like, listen, I can't afford this. Like, I'm stressing to make this payment for my jet ski, and every time I drove the thing, it cost me $75 in gas because it was supercharged. I mean, the thing was drinking gasoline when I first bought it. It was the last thing that I owned. I did actually pay it off, though, before I sold it. I sold my snowmobile, paid that off. I sold my Ranger that I did put $4,000 down on. I sold that for almost what I paid for it, actually. And I paid that off completely. I didn't take that money, put it in my bank account, and spend it on other stuff. I paid it off. I kept the jet ski because I loved it. I did pay it off, though. I did own that when I sold it. But the way I looked at it was like, listen, I have this jet ski. It was June of, was it?
I think it was 18 or 19.
It was last summer, right?
19.
Yeah. And, because it wasn't this year. I can't remember. Jesus.
Yeah. June of 19.
Not important. But I ended up selling it. I got $13,000 for it. And I'm like, I had a student loan at the time that had a balance of like 17 or 18 grand. And, I have this thing that I do when I pay off debt, and I continue to plan to do it, especially when I pay for Courtney's school. And I don't think a lot of people do this, but I like it. I deposited that money from the check for the jet ski into my account, all $13,000, and I had, I probably had, probably $10,000 in savings or so at the time. I deposited that check, and I still had that student loan. It was a little over 18, actually. I went to the bank and I took out cash to feel it. To feel this is why I sold it. Like, this wad of cash in my pocket means I'm never, ever going to make a payment to Mohila ever again. I'm never, ever going to make that payment again. It's a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. I sold that jet ski in June, okay? So the peak jet ski season, because I knew that's when I was going to get the most money for it, and that's hard. A lot of people want to sell it in the wintertime when they're still making payments on it. I had the discipline to buck up, I just bought a trailer for it too. I spent $300 on a trailer. I'm talking a month before.
Yeah, toys are expensive. I mean, it's one thing after another with toys, and they break. You got to fix them. There's oil. All this shit adds up
Tremendously.
You think it's just a payment. It's not even just the payment. Now you got to add to your gas bill. You got to add to your oil bill. You got to add to all this shit.
Maintenance, all that stuff, winterizing, and for me, My step in paying off debt, what worked for me was feeling the cash in my hand, all of it at once, and then handing it over. And I'm probably going to do that with Courtney's car. Not that I'm in debt. I'm buying her a car. I'm not in debt. I'm not going into debt, just to clarify. But when I buy her a car, I plan to do it with $100 bills because it's so mental. It's so behavioral. It's not so much about math. And you have to learn to it's discipline. It's like, I had everything I wanted. New car, new snowmobile, new jet ski, all this. Nowadays I could easily, quote, afford that, but I don't have any of it because I'm not there yet. There's going to be a time in my life where I can do that again. Your life too, and a lot of other people's, but I gave it all up. What are you willing to sacrifice?
You got to know your why. I think it comes down to finding your why in this. And for me personally, my why is knowing that nobody owns me, right? Like when we pay this mortgage off, so we're gunning to pay this mortgage off by the time I turn 30. I mean, what a feeling to be 30 years old and own everything in your life. I mean, nobody owns you.
Nobody
if you
does
wanted
that
to
too.
not go to work, you just don't go to work. I could deliver fucking pizza because we'd have probably $1,000 in monthly bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Between gas, electric, all that bullshit. But I mean, think about that. Think about that feeling. And it's just a short-term sacrifice that nobody wants to make. It's the same thing with working out. It's just discipline. If you don't eat that fucking ice cream and you eat a chicken instead, you're going to feel better in the long run after 30 days, 100 days, whatever it is. It's just a short-term sacrifice for a lifetime
But then you're going to learn to love it. You're going to learn to love that feeling.
Yes.
Nothing makes me happier than driving my $300 car. I mean, I love that thing. I mean, every time I drive it, there's another problem. I mean, just this week on my way here, it was leaking transmission fluid. Patched it up. You keep on going. And I think what's crazy is you tell people, I'm going to pay off my house when I'm 30. People are going to laugh at you.
They do.
Right? I tell people what I'm going to accomplish, and they laugh at me. Okay, good luck.
Yeah.
Because we as a culture, we cut ourselves short. We don't think that we can accomplish these things. It's just what's crazy is it's not even that hard.
It's so fucking simple.
And you're not unhappy. You buy shit you want.
Yeah.
You have a budget. You're paying off your mortgage in 7 years, and you're not a millionaire. You're not making $1 million a year. You don't need to do that.
Not even close.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the key. That once you start to sacrifice, you'll learn to love it. Every time I get paid now, all I see is I'm, X percent closer to Courtney's grad school, and I'm not going to get into details of my income, but it's, let's just say I'm trying to save $1,000, and every time I get paid, I'm allowed to set aside, every month I'm allowed to set aside $500. What percentage of that 500 is that 10,000, and how long is it going to take me to get there?
Yeah. You got to do the math too, right? When you look at these interest rates on some of this shit too, you're paying thousands of dollars that you just don't have to. I mean, that's what it was for me, why I never got into debt. I was like, why would I pay more when I don't have to? Mm-hmm. And again, I think that comes back to instant gratification at its finest. You know what I mean? I mean, that is just the backbone of it is I can have it right now. Well, if you wait 6 months and you save up and save up and save up, you can have it and own it compared to owing on it for the next 10 whatever years you choose to loan, lease, whatever you do with it. But
right.
Let's get into more of the debt snowball effect.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. You want to start that off?
Yeah, I think the debt snowball is not a unique idea. We didn't invent it. I didn't invent it. A lot of people do it, but it works. I think the concept.
Tens of millions of people have done it.
I mean, it's a tremendous plan, and I think you're always going to see your naysayers out there that try to make paying off debt a math problem. The data shows that doesn't work. The data shows that you need to allow yourself to win. You need to allow yourself to win and win often. So, let's say you have 3 credit cards. One credit card is $1,000, one credit card is $3,000, one credit card is $6,000. I don't care what the interest rate is on those. I don't care if one is 0%. Okay, I don't. And one is 25%. I want the smallest one paid off first because interest is not the problem here. Your behavior was in getting those credit cards racked up in the first place. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to make minimum payments and everything, but you're gonna pay off the smallest card first.
Everything extra you have goes to that smallest debt that you have, whether it's a car, credit card, whatever it may be. Everything extra, you make the minimum payments on everything, and all the extra goes on that smallest debt.
And then that card finds a shred bin.
It disappears. So now, let's say you were paying $100 a month on that small card.
Right.
Now that $100 goes to the next smallest debt. So now you're making the minimum payment of, say it's $20 a month. Now you're paying $120 on that card. And, and you're not using these because if you keep racking them up, you're just defeating the whole purpose.
Right.
And eventually the snowball grows and grows and grows. And before you know it, you don't have debt. I mean, you can go into more detail if you want there, but
yeah, and I'm good at teaching the program. I will admit I didn't do too much of the debt snowball. A lot of my debt was in stuff that I could sell and get rid of quickly. I never had credit card debt. I never had that problem. I did use a credit card. I used it for the points, and we'll get into that too. I never carried credit card debt. I've never paid the company, any interest at any point in time. I'm more of a, I was just more disciplined, I guess, the whole time. But the program works. If you have multiple debts and you have varying interest rates and varying sizes, the key is to allow yourself to win. And you need to win often, and you need to reward yourself for winning.
Right, because it feels good when you cut up that first card because it's got a zero balance on it, and then the next one, and the next one, and then the day you get your title in the mail for your car. I mean, those are great days, great feelings. And yeah, like your credit card interest rate is probably more than your car interest rate. So would it make sense mathematically? Sure, maybe it would, but it's not gonna it's gonna take longer because that debt is bigger. Right. And when it takes longer, you start to say, do I really need to be doing this? I was fine before, and you never reach that potential that you can have.
You can get discouraged
very quickly.
And I think something I said, I don't know if it was last episode or so, but hope. I think you have to believe that you can do it, and you need to have some hope that you can get this thing done, because some people have such apparently insurmountable mountains of debt. I mean, the people that I talk to that can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's because they haven't started yet. I mean, there are situations, and I've seen a lot of people's individual finances, and I'm like, oh, okay, we can handle this. And honestly, there's been some where I go, fuck.
Yeah.
How did the banks let you do this? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like you're making sub 50 a year, and I mean, I don't even know how you figure it out, and yet they're still swiping their credit card. Well, I got to give my kid Christmas. I gotta buy groceries. Like, excuse, but
I think figuring that out comes to you just have to make more money. There's no way around it. You have to hustle. You either pick up a second job or something like that. And a lot of times people paying off debt, they start to do that because they get that motivation after you pay off a few, and you're like, oh, we're making progress. We're going somewhere. So they get a second job. They ask for a raise. They do these things that get them more income. And then your debts keep going away and going away and going away because the feeling of not having debt, again, is just incredible. I mean, you own yourself. Nobody's going to tell you what to do. You show up to things that you want to show up to. You don't have to be there all day long. And I don't know what you're thinking listening to this, but it sounds crazy, but it's not. Like it's so I don't want to say easy and make it what it's not. Like it's not really easy because it takes discipline, it takes hard work, but the steps are easy. It's just putting them all together.
I think this is a good, pivot into what getting out of debt really is. It's all about what's up here. It's obviously about the money. That's assumed. We know that you got to pay off debt. We will, there's a way to do it. There's a process to get out of it, but it's about that discipline. And I think, people make a ton of excuses about why they can't do shit.
Excuse for everything.
I already have a job. Okay, listen, there's 168 hours in a week. Okay. And let's say you get 8 hours of sleep every night. You're sleeping 56 of those. Okay. There is what 100 or so hours left in the week, and
112.
112. So you must know the data as well, or you can just do quick math. Smarter than me, I guess.
A genius.
Not a genius. People say I have a job. I work 40 hours. It's like, when? You know what I mean? It's like you worked 40 hours. Get another fucking job. Work harder. Get your skills up. Stop bitching. And I hate
because you have to right now. But there'll be a time that you won't have to.
Figure it out. The American dream is alive and well. It's there. It's there for the taking. You can do whatever you want in this country. And you can sit here and say, it's all this bullshit going on, politics, wah, wah, wah. Listen, if you want to make more money, you can do one of two things. You can work harder, or you can get your knowledge, skills, and abilities up. And if you can get your KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities up, you can make yourself more valuable. You can arguably make more money. I'm not saying those knowledge, skills, and abilities are going to immediately return, that investment. But, I can tell you, in my case, it has, so I don't.
Hasn't in mine yet.
It will at some point, though, right? Everything you're doing now is coming to it. So for me, I don't have to work a second job. I honestly, I probably have the time, but I also have to have a balance. But, I don't feel bad. I do not feel bad for you if you're not trying, if you're not asking the questions, if you're not working more than 40 hours, if you're not getting a second job. I hear it all the time, well, I have kids. Okay, well, I know people, whoever I'm talking about, who make less money than you, have kids, and are much more well off than you. You're making an excuse, and I'm sure you have opinions on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's something that you, quote, need to do or want to do, but you aren't doing it, there's always an excuse,
Sure.
right? I mean, my favorite is the gym. I mean, the amount of excuses I hear for people that can't go to the gym is just sickening. I mean, it's fucking sickening. But then even people that do go to the gym, right, they get there, they'll find an excuse why they can't change their financial picture. And usually not. Usually people that go to the gym have more of a determined mindset. Typically, not everybody, but typically there's a more determined mindset there, and they could get with the program. But, I mean, it's just one excuse after another. I mean, I could go on a tear on this. I'll just
on and on. I mean, I could too. I mean, this could be a 36-hour podcast if people were meal serving us right now. I mean, there's an excuse for everything. I made them all. I mean, listen, I did everything I'm telling you not to do. And one thing I did do well, and I had some deep thoughts. I remember them when I was, I think, 16. I was a junior in high school, and I've told many people who are close to me about this time, and I think it was the first of many big steps I've taken. I was a junior in high school. I think at the time my GPA was probably a 2.0. I was borderline failing. I was bad at school. I didn't have anything going for me. I can't fix cars. I'm not a plumber. I don't want to be an electrician, anything like that. Those are all great careers, but I didn't feel like that was where I was going to add the most value. That moment in time, my senior year, I got almost straight A's and figured it out.
When your back's up against the wall, you're going to figure it the fuck out. No matter who you are, no matter what you do. The Rock has a whole speech on this on YouTube that's phenomenal. When your back's against the wall, there's nowhere to go but forward. And whatever's in front of you, you just run right the fuck through it. Because no matter what, when people are down, they figure it out. They figure it out to scrape by, but unlock your mind a little bit. Open your mind a little bit more. Instead of just scraping by, what can we really accomplish? I mean, one of my favorite quotes, I forget who said it, but we're only operating at half of what we ought to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, what that means is we are only reaching half of our true potential all the time. We as humans are capable of so much more, but we limit ourselves with these excuses and this, I can't, I don't know, maybe this isn't safe. Fuck that. Take a chance. You never know what could happen.
I think something that I say to a lot of people is, if it's important to you, you'll make time for it.
Bingo.
And in my case, I go to work in the morning at about 7:15, 7:30. I don't return home till about 8:15 to 8:30. So I am out of the house working, and then I'm at the gyms, 4 nights a week or so, working on myself. And the gym, honestly, is so strong for your mind. I mean, it's about discipline. It leaks into your finances. It creates a all-around, well-disciplined, healthy person.
And here's something with that, because I know someone's listening to this going, okay, that's 13 hours of my day. I got to sleep for 8. Fuck that. But you're happy.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what people don't get is you would love it. You know what I mean? You get accustomed to this lifestyle and you get accustomed to all this.
To the progress, to the success.
Yeah, because you're making huge strides. I mean, it's just one of those things you can't understand the feeling until you start doing it. And if you take nothing else from this, at least try.
I think the biggest excuse that a lot of people make is, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. We all hear it. It's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, just try it, and if you don't like it, fine, but I'll be shocked if you don't like it.
Yeah, but you have to stick with it long enough to form an educated opinion on it. You know, you
Yeah,
can't.
don't try it for a week and tell me it sucks and you can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go to the gym, 3-4 times in a week, give it half an effort, you feel a little bit sore, this sucks, pick up a gallon of ice cream and start numbing it to a Batman movie. I mean, you gotta give it a long enough time to see some progress.
And with this discipline thing, too, I mean, something we can easily segue into here is the credit card talk, because a lot of people will say, well, I'm going to keep my credit cards and I'm going to use the points. And, I mean, that
mathematically,
yes,
it can make sense.
Right. But
mathematically,
great discipline is required to do this. I do it. I use a credit card for my gas and my groceries because I get 3% and 2% back. And Bank of America actually paid for one of these microphones. So, I haven't given Bank of America a single dime on that card. They give me my cash back. I buy nice shit with it.
Right.
Thank you. But I have discipline, okay? And I'm not going to go on a rant of how I got there, all this stuff, but I've made plenty of sacrifices, and I've taught myself this discipline over the years. And if you have enough discipline, you can very, very easily do that. But the reason why people shouldn't necessarily is because you don't have the discipline, because look at where you are.
And you're not going to spend any more or less if it's card, cash, debit card, credit card. Like, you know what you're buying. You have a plan for it. Like, if you don't have a plan for your money, you're going to wind up in a mall, okay? You don't want to wind up in a mall with a credit card in your hand, because the temptation to buy the good now is the problem. And credit cards can only buy consumer shit. But they buy groceries. Your debit card can buy groceries. Most people, I think the average household has, it's like $19,000 or $20,000 in credit card debt, something like that. And you're talking 18 to 20, 6% interest. I mean, yikes. And when you pay the minimum payment on that, like $37 a month or whatever your calculation is, it grows every month. I mean, if you make a payment and spend nothing, you have a higher balance than the month before. I mean, it's possible to have a higher balance than your credit limit. And credit cards are so stupid. If they're not the most heavily marketed product in the United States, they're very close to the top. I mean, there is a reason. That microphone, thank you, Bank of America. I went to Nashville on Chase. But again, it's
discipline.
I had discipline. Like, I know what I'm going to spend all the time.
There's a budget. There was a budget for the microphone. There was a budget for Nashville. There's a budget and a plan. It's not just I have extra money. What do I do with this? It's okay, we have extra money that's going for this and going for this and going for that.
Right.
And there was also like a saving up for it too, right? Like, I didn't just get the $130 in the Bank of America account there on cash back and be like, oh, I'm going to go buy something now. I was thinking like, hey, I said it to you how many months ago now. I was like, hey, I'm going to make Bank of America buy me something.
Yeah.
Just the thought of that, like, hey, thanks, guys. You know what I mean? Like, eat shit. Fuck Bank of America.
But it's just so much. There's so much discipline that goes into it, and it is challenging to do, which is why I would say if you're early in the getting out of the debt phase and you have credit card debt, I would recommend not using it, period.
Right.
When you become super disciplined, like I never had credit card debt, never had that problem. The data does show that you do spend a little bit more money if you swipe a card instead of use cash. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell everyone to have a wad of cash in their pocket all the time, okay? It doesn't make sense. It's not convenient. For the
coins.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want a quarter.
Throw them out the window. You know what I mean? Throw them out the window. And that's why cards work for me. I think another reason that, if you can have a credit card discipline, they are pretty secure, and they do provide kind of a second or a third way to pay. What if your debit card's not working? What if it says there's fraud? Who knows? Like, having another way to pay is good. I'm not sitting here advertising for the credit card companies. I don't think they're good. If you don't need them, don't have them. But most people have a problem with credit cards.
And no one ever became a millionaire because they got cash back. Dave Ramsey says that shit all the time, and I think it's hilarious.
Same thing would go for car payments. I mean, no millionaire is going to sit here and tell you, man, my local community bank lent me money for my car, and now here I am. I'm a millionaire. That's just not a story you hear. It's all about stories of discipline, perseverance, increasing their knowledge, their skills, their abilities, networking.
Wasn't one of the most common themes per Chris Hogan's not Everyday Millionaires, but his like study they did, Dave Ramsey and Chris Hogan, the study they did on millionaires, wasn't the most common theme that they all paid off their mortgage early?
Yeah.
Not all, but like a crazy percent, like something in the 80s.
No, I think of everyone who participated, the average time to pay off the mortgage is like 11 years. So the average person paid off their mortgage in 11 years because, listen, your house is your net worth. If you pay your house off and it's worth $400,000 and you have $600,000 in cash, you're a millionaire.
Cha-ching.
You're a millionaire. So, there are some common themes here. They're not idiots. These people who have a net worth of over $1 million, have some common things. And it's a great study. I would recommend, looking into, Chris Hogan and some of his work over at Ramsey Solutions. It's definitely a good study. It debunks so many myths about, you're a millionaire because you came from money. Not true. I didn't come from money. You didn't come from money. Chances are we're both going to be millionaires.
My mother was teaching me how to use a credit card when I was 17. So, yeah, no, I did not come from wealth.
Yeah, and I came from some pretty dark depths. They're figuring it out, but,
And listen, I'm no success story. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have millions of dollars. I don't even have hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have 20% of our house and whatever we have in our bank accounts, which isn't a ton of money. But you know what? We have the freedom to do what we want.
Yeah.
And once the house is gone, then it's over. You know what I mean? Like, then you owe nobody anything for the rest of your life.
Right, and I think it might seem like we're getting off topic talking about, discipline and all these other things, but at the end of the day, it's really what it takes, month in, month out, week in, week out, to make sure you keep, chopping down that tree of debt. It's super important to stay the course, to remain disciplined through the hard times, and to keep going. And I know for me right now, yeah, it's pretty hard. Like there's times where I'm like, damn, I really want that. I don't care if it's $100. Like, yeah, I could take $100, put it through the paper shredder right now, and I would sleep like a baby tonight. But I will not buy something unless I budgeted it. That's the discipline that I have. I don't care if I make $1 million this month. I'm not buying it. That $1 million has a home. I've already given it a home for something. It's not for, hell, we went to Best Buy yesterday to buy an Apple Watch, and I couldn't do it. It was actually, and even worse, I'm too disciplined, and I think this is actually a decent segue. A budget gives you permission to spend. It doesn't restrict you to spend.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I have a problem where I don't let myself spend my budgeted money, and don't do that to yourself. Like, I don't want a budget to feel restrictive, and I'm working my way out of that. I recently increased my fund money budget. It was literally $100 a month. I was spending $100 a month on everything I wanted to do, and had a conversation with you. It just wasn't enough. I couldn't even – I'd go out to eat once, and it could be lights.
Your mental health you have to account for your mental health in this as well. And it's hard. Like, you're going to go through some shit. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. You just have to do it, though, because the other side, the light at the end of the tunnel, that light is the brightest light you're ever going to see.
Yeah. When I wake up in the morning and I go to work, I have a great team. I work with a bunch of great people, and I'm really happy to be there. A great career, but I'm there because I want to be there. Like, I'm not just saying that because it works for me now and it pays me the money that I need. And, as of right now, there's not another place that I want to go. And that's a good feeling because I'm in control, of my future. I say to Courtney, I could, because I rent, I don't have a mortgage, I don't have any long-term lasting obligations. I could, quit my job, stop working for 2 years while she's in grad school, and be fine the whole time. I'm not saying I'd be out, balling, but I've taken control of my life where the banks aren't sending me letters for bills every month. I don't have them,
Yeah. And that's where you go when you don't have debt. You build that quote emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
And if something comes up, you have an emergency fund for it, but then you have to make sure you replenish that emergency
Correct.
fund, and here's the thing: when you don't have debt, your emergency fund isn't that much money, right?
Right.
Comparing my monthly debts of what I owe for gas, electric, those sort of things, your monthly bills, your mortgage, isn't, nearly as much as what some people's 6 months of expenses are because we don't have the debt. Like 20 grand could get us 5-6 months compared to some people, 20 grand could get them a month or two. it's your choice. Like, it's not even about how much money you make. It's just about how much money you're spending. You spend less, you need to make less. So if you don't want to go to work on Friday, you don't go to fucking work on Friday.
Yeah.
Your life is, I mean, it's something I preach. You are in control of your life, and the choices that you make, you control your future. And so few of us just, it's like people don't believe it. It's like people think, oh, I have to come from wealth to be wealthy. It's not even the case.
Yeah. I think, actions have consequences, and consequences can be good, and in your case they've been good, and in my case they've been mostly good, but we're also going to face a lot more challenges, but we also have the discipline to kind of overcome them,
and the mental fortitude to overcome that shit too, right? Like, I mean, there's a mental, like, there's been things, like, my life hasn't just been all great. I mean, I normally highlight the good parts, right? But there's been bad times, but you fight through that. And the thing with the bad times is you'll learn more from that shit than anything else in life. Some of the worst times I've had the most valuable lessons from.
I've learned way more from my failures than I have from my successes.
Absolutely. But you have to have failures.
That sounds cliche, but it's just it's cliche because it's true. I mean, there's a reason, that you're going to see these entrepreneurs, and millionaires kind of explain to you, their processes and how they got from point A to point B. And every story is riddled with failure, absolute embarrassing failure. But it's not embarrassing because it was their path and it was their journey, and they're not afraid to fail. Something I tell, my guys all the time, and people that, I consult with, I'm like, listen, don't be afraid to stick your neck out. Don't be afraid to make yourself vulnerable. Just don't be afraid to be unique. Don't be afraid to be weird. Do things that are uncomfortable. When I was going through college, I was the first one to raise my hand and go for a presentation. Sounds silly, but I'm telling you, that made me some enemies, because I wasn't afraid to stick out. I would go first. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to stand up and start talking. I'm pretty good at that. And there was times where I faked it till I made it, and I kind of did that in my job now, just have, gushing confidence in yourself, and sometimes it works out. And I'm not saying that's a strategy for everybody, but what I am saying is, stick your neck out, do something you've always wanted to do, and make sure you give it your all. Don't just dip your toes in the water, jump right in.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I don't think I have too much more on debt. You?
No, I'm sure we'll touch on it, here and then, but and probably in the future. But I think for now, that's a good summary.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. What you can expect in part 3, types of investing. And this is something Josh is actually really, really good at. He's encouraged me to get into more investing. He's definitely helped me a lot in this. So this is definitely an episode that you're not going to want to miss. But you have to make sure you get through the first 2 to get to the third one. And by the first 2, I mean the first steps. Getting your budget, getting out of debt, and then you can get into the investment stuff. So that'll be coming up in part 3. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.